lately, I've been finding myself pulling whiskeys off the shelf that are consistently unique, ones that tell a good story every time I pop the cork, and I have to say that Doc Swinson's is absolutely top tier when it comes to a fascinating pour. What separates Doc Swinson's from the rest of the pack is their unrelenting goal of always letting the whiskey shine. No matter what whiskey comes through the front door at Doc's, their team of tasters will blend and finish it into something that is deliciously memorable. The beautiful thing about a good blended whiskey is that oftentimes, with proper care and attention, they turn into a whiskey that is truly greater than the sum of their parts. Whether you're trying their alter ego, blender's cut, or exploratory series, you are guaranteed to have a phenomenal experience with Doc Swinson's whiskey. You can find them online at docswhiskey.com. That's DOCS whiskey.com.
Hey everybody, welcome into the Film and Whiskey Podcast. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we're coming at you today with another special bonus episode.
Bonus episode.
Brad, we're throwing it way back. We're getting in the way back machine today because we have a return guest today that we haven't spoken to since season 1. It's not that we're on bad terms. He's a very busy man. You know, it's hard to get him back on the show, but I am very, very excited to talk again with our friend David Mandell. David is joining us from what looks like his kitchen, and he has just a fantastic lineup of whiskey behind him here. So we might have to just do the next time from David's kitchen, I think is what we're trying to say. David, how are you today?
It's great. It's great to be here, guys. I'm sorry it's been so long. Yes, we have been busy, but it's just such a pleasure to be back on with you guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, to start off, David, last we heard you were chairing a massive company and doing all sorts of crazy stuff there. What have you been up to since? Life has changed a little bit, I hear.
I mean, life has changed, I think, for everybody over the last several years.
That's for sure.
It's been a really interesting run. But for me, I mean, it's been an extremely rewarding several years. I think the last time that we talked, I was the CEO of Bardstown Bourbon Company. And since then, we sold the company. I went on to then become the chairman of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, the president of Kentucky Owl, building their distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky. I've immersed myself in the community, and it really has been an extremely rewarding couple of years. And there has, so much has changed in the bourbon landscape. It's been very exciting times, but it's, again, it's a wonderful industry to be in. It's a wonderful community, and it's, continues to go in the right direction.
I was going to say, it's crazy. The last time we talked, a pandemic was like the furthest thing from any of our minds.
I mean, isn't that true? I mean, it wasn't even anything. Of course, it was even remotely on the radar screen, but, certainly as an industry, we worked through it. The industry has done well. It was also an industry that was able to, band together and support, the effort to fight COVID in many different ways, for everything from producing hand sanitizer to raising money, to supporting local communities with PPE. There was all sorts of things, but it's been a very long, but at the same time, very fast several years. And it's great to be coming out of it completely, hopefully at this point.
Well, I think that's a good segue. Talking about the local community, let's talk about Bardstown, because we're here today to talk about the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and you can't talk about the festival without talking about Bardstown. And for people who have never been to Bardstown, it is just the most interesting place. I feel like you could just write a dissertation about its importance to the industry, because it is, roughly halfway between Lexington and Louisville. It's kind of right in the middle of everything. So many major brands are located in Bardstown or near Bardstown that you often see figures from different distilleries that you would consider competitors meeting for lunch, talking with each other. It's such a fascinating place. And for our listeners who have never been, David, can you try to paint the picture of what it's like for the industry in Bardstown?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you summarized it well, but, Bardstown is the bourbon capital of the world. You have more than a dozen, major distilleries in a, very small radius centered around a town of 10,000 plus people. And, in many ways, it's like walking back into time. We often like to describe it as a Hallmark movie. I mean, this is the kind of place that you can go into and you have the Christmas parade, and it's like stepping back into another world. It's it's absolutely unbelievable. I've lived there. I moved to Bardstown in 2013. I live right downtown in a house that dates back to the early 1800s. But it's a remarkable place. And again, it's not only the center of bourbon in Kentucky, but it's also a place that plays an incredible role in history in terms of being kind of the point of the spear on Western expansion in the United States. It was the first archdiocese of the Catholic Church off the East Coast. It was a center in the late 1700s, early 1800s for politics, for art, for culture. And of course, the Civil War really tore things apart. And it wasn't until pre-Prohibition and after Prohibition that the bourbon industry really began to build things back in the town. It has an absolutely remarkable history.
Yeah, David, and you can't really separate the Kentucky Bourbon Festival from Bardstown. And I'm just curious, describe to me the history of the festival. How did it come about? What made the locals say, we need to have a festival?
The festival dates back over 30 years. We're now going into our 31st year of the festival. And the festival in its early days was really a kind of a coming together of the industry and the employees, and was very much a local festival, and it was for quite some time. And as the festival developed, like all great things, it needed to evolve. And we got to the point several years ago where the festival, I would say, was not evolving as quickly as the industry had. And so we really had to take a very hard look at it and say, what do we need to do to make sure that this festival keeps pace with the industry and really begins to drive the kind of tourism that we are seeing across the Bourbon Trail, in all aspects for Kentucky, but continues to drive that to Bardstown, not only for the industry and for the community. And I was asked to take over as chairman of the festival right at the same time I stepped down as CEO of Bardstown Bourbon Company. And it was one of those moments where it said, David, you can't really complain about anything else now. You've got time to work on this. So I said, okay, I'll do it. But if we're going to do it, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to really look at the festival. We're going to hire somebody that knows how to run festivals. And we're going to ask the industry, the bourbon industry, what do we need to do to build this into the next great festival here, that's going to draw people from all over the country and all over the world. And we took that approach. We hired Randy Prossi, who was absolutely fabulous background in running festivals. We reconstructed the festival. We developed it, and it's really kind of hard to imagine that back in the day, you didn't have, direct bourbon tasting at the festival in all aspects in the way that you would think about it now. So we created an environment and an experience that you could not get anywhere else, where you're bringing together the best bourbon companies from all over the state, celebrating Kentucky bourbon in an atmosphere where you can open sample. And now this year, you can buy bottles directly at the festival from the booths from the different distilleries. So some really exciting developments, and we can talk more about those.
Absolutely. Let's get into it now, because our listenership is largely comprised of people who are just getting into the world of whiskey, just trying it out for the first time, learning a lot of the lingo and the terminology. And when they hear about something like the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, the first thing in their minds is, okay, this is for people who are wanting to take the next step in their education. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. When you look at the events list and everything that you offer at the festival, I think there's really is something for everyone. But specifically, what would you say would appeal to kind of the whiskey novice?
First of all, there is no better place than the Kentucky Bourbon Festival to come get immersed in Kentucky bourbon, whether, again, you're a novice, whether you are somebody that is a real, connoisseur. We have something for everyone. And we've really worked to develop that experience. And now it is a single ticket price. It's $125, all tasting included. All 3 days, you can come into the festival, you can go out, you can continue to sample, you can go to distilleries, you can come back in, and there is a great mix of not only having the best Kentucky distilleries this year, we have 50 distilleries and brands from Kentucky participating in it, which you can sample, all of their products. We've got great education. we have food, we have events, we have educational opportunities. And, this is the type of environment that we're developing in a really kind of small and intimate environment. It's outside, it's right downtown in the center of Bardstown, Kentucky. And it's the kind of place where you can walk in and there'll be 5 master distillers, some of the best blenders, the great brands, everybody together in this really intimate setting. So what I would tell you is, kybourbonfestival.com. If you haven't yet, get your tickets, get them quickly, and come join us in September for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival.
Yeah, it seems like you listed, maybe 1 or 2 things I might be a little excited about there, David. I'm curious, what are you most excited for about this upcoming festival? What are you just looking forward to going like, man, I cannot wait to be there to experience?
Well, so there's so many things, but let me tell you a couple of things that are really big that not only make us completely different from all of other festivals in the country. So the Kentucky legislature just passed a law in the last several months that allows us to sell bottles directly to consumers at festivals. That's a big deal. Why is that a big deal for whiskey? Well, we all know so many people out there are always looking for something you can't get, the bottle you can't get anywhere else. Where else now can you come to a festival? We got 50 distilleries. You can sample products. They can sell bottles directly to you at the festival. And we do a single barrel exclusive pick program. So we have, more than a dozen distilleries that are doing exclusive single barrel bottles for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival that go on sale throughout the weekend. And you can get them. We do that with Justin's House of Bourbon exclusively, and we sell them at the festival. They're really wonderful opportunities, to explore, to collect. And then we have an auction with the Oscar Getz Museum with rare and vintage bourbon that takes place on Sunday. And you can come in and you can bid. It's all for charity. And you can get signed bottles. You can get packages that you can't get anywhere else for experiences at the distilleries. You can get vintage bottles. This is like, whether, again, you're a novice or whether you are, the bourbon connoisseur, you can't get a better experience than the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. And our goal is to make it better every year. We're approaching this festival the same way, certainly, that we approach, and I've approached business before, evolve, let's do a number of things really well. Let's create great experiences and let's continue to evolve. Let's listen to our customers and let's get better and better.
One thing that I've always loved about the festival, and it's very prominent on the website even now, is the ties to the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame and the kind of induction ceremony that we have at the festival. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about how that initiative got started and what we're looking forward to this year, as much as you can share about what
I'll tell you, and there's some things that are different about it too. And again, this goes to the concept of continuing to focus on the things that as a festival we do well and make sure that others that do, things well and are really in their expertise, that we're making sure that those are in the right hands. So for a long time, the Kentucky Bourbon Festival had the Bourbon Hall of Fame, and that honors people that have made a real impact in, the bourbon industry. And the festival controlled who was selected. But, as things go over time, the real question was, is it really for the festival to make that determination, or is that something that is better determined by the industry itself? And so we came to the conclusion shortly after I took over the festival that authority really sat appropriately with the Kentucky Distillers Association. And that's the association that represents the distilleries. And so we worked with them. They have taken over the responsibility of selecting the people for the Hall of Fame and curating that going forward. We're actually going to be looking for a permanent home for that, but that will take place during the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. And we're looking as we go forward for different ways to really celebrate those people that are selected for the Bourbon Hall of Fame. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and it now appropriately sits and is chosen by the Kentucky Distillers Association, and that event will take place during the Bourbon Festival always.
Wonderful.
Well, David, I am absolutely sold. I am crazy excited for this festival. I think that our listeners probably are a little bit excited. And I know you said it before, but give us another shout out on the website and how people can get tickets, learn more information.
kybourbonfestival.com. Go on the website, get your tickets. Now, one thing you might notice is that most of your lodging, if not all of it, is sold out in Bardstown. But go on there, you'll see. Look at Elizabethtown, look at Shepherdsville. Both are 20 minutes from Bardstown. Shepherdsville is halfway between Bardstown and the Louisville airport. Elizabethtown is about 20 minutes south. Great lodging opportunities. Get your hotel rooms and make sure you get there and come, because we are developing a festival again as we look forward that is going to be the absolute and is the premier experience in bourbon every year. It's going to keep getting better. We have continued to learn, we have continued to evolve. And this year with the new model, with the new ticket structure, with the unlimited sampling for one ticket price for 3 days, it is not only a remarkable value, but it's going to be a wonderful experience.
David has been very humble about not revealing this information, but the real coup de grace, the pièce de résistance of this festival is that Brad and I are going to be at the festival this year. Film and Whiskey is going to be represented at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival.
I mentioned that?
No. What he was trying to say was avoid admitting that they made a colossal mistake by giving us media credentials to this thing. So we're going to be there all 3 days this year. We'll be doing on-site interviews. If you're at the festival and you'd like to come say hi, we'll hopefully have a booth set up. If not, we'll be carrying around microphones to talk with people of all walks of life about what brought them to the festival, what they're enjoying about it, what bottles they're purchasing. Seriously, David, I cannot wait to join you this year for this thing.
Well, thank you. And we couldn't be more thrilled to have you there. And again, what I really love about what we're creating is we have a festival with incredible history. This is something that is an economic catalyst for our entire community too. So when you're coming to the Bourbon Festival, you're not just supporting, the industry. You are supporting the people of Bardstown, the people that make this community what it is, by being here, by supporting tourism, by coming to our restaurants. It is a really important thing for the community and the people that work in the industry. And we couldn't thank you enough for being part of it. Our mission at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and we now have a very clear one, is to support and to promote Kentucky bourbon, and Bardstown is the bourbon capital of the world. And that is what we do.
We're going to let you off the hot seat a little bit here. We can't let you out of here without talking about movies. Now, the last time that you were on, we asked you about your favorite movie. And your favorite movie, at least at the time, was The Big Lebowski.
It's like one of the greatest of all time, right?
I got to ask you, even before Brad jumps in. Well, actually, Brad, have you seen The Big Lebowski before?
I have not seen The Big Lebowski. All I know is that there are White Russians in it. And John Goodman and White Russians. So, what could be bad about it?
Yeah, that's true.
David, I got to ask you, man, that because we have such a good relationship now, I've never gotten The Big Lebowski. It's just, I don't know if it's over my head. I don't know if I just am a person with no sense of humor. But give me your elevator pitch. Like, why does this movie deserve a second chance?
It's really hard to say. It's funny because I've had this conversation with people, and the other founder of Bardstown Bourbon Company, Dan Lind, who was the CFO. This also happens to be one of his favorite films. It's one of those things where it's just like, it's the Coen brothers. It's one of those films that's in so many ways esoteric. But I have read, I can't tell you how many different critiques and editorial comments about. What does the film really stand for? What is it a commentary on? And I think that that's one of the things that makes the film so interesting is there are so many theories about what the film stands for, whether it's a critique of, American culture and society, from the tumbling tumbleweeds as the film opens. There's so much about it. And I think that, to me, at the end of the day, that's one of the things that makes things interesting is when you can't exactly figure out what they're about, and it stood the test of time.
There is just a level of weirdness that goes with the Coen brothers that it like sometimes it works for you and sometimes it doesn't. And we're actually doing a mini series of 3 of their kind of more slapsticky comedies this season. The ones that's always appealed to me the most is Raising Arizona. I think that the opening 10, 15 minutes of that movie are just utter perfection. So we're doing that one. We're doing Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And then we're closing it out with Lebowski.
Yep.
I mean,
it's a great choice.
It's a fantastic lineup.
What's your favorite film? Not that we're going to take this in a completely different direction.
Favorite Coen brothers or?
No, just in general. I know it's impossible to answer that one, but if you had to say what's at the top of your list.
You asked me on the perfect night because we have been holding off on reviewing Jurassic Park for 6 years now, or 6 seasons rather. And tonight is the night that we're going to record Jurassic Park as soon as we get off the horn with you. And that is by far my favorite movie.
Is that right?
It's a thing. We've talked about it before too, that I think it's generational. Like if you're an 80s kid or older, I think Jaws hits people a certain way. And if you're a little bit younger, Jurassic Park does the exact same thing. So the way that most people feel about Jaws, I have this affinity for Jurassic Park.
That's funny. I just saw the new one.
Kids
to see it. I'll reserve judgment there.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many YouTube videos I've seen talking about Jurassic Park, and they'll basically compare it to the new ones, but the comparison always is like, why does the Jurassic World series leave me feeling empty on the inside? And Jurassic Park makes me feel so good.
It's a good question, but if it's any indication of kind of the way my humor and brain works, I like Big Lebowski. One of my favorite movies is Brain Donors, John Turturro. I don't know if you are familiar with that film, but if you're not, it's one definitely to watch. It's kind of like insanity to another level.
Oh, we're gonna have to check that one out for sure, Brad. I'm on board for it.
Yeah, I'm totally in.
If you haven't seen that, that is a sleeper of all sleepers, and it is a play on A Night at the Opera by the Marx Brothers.
Oh, nice.
And it is great.
See, this is why you bring David Mandell on the show, folks. Like, we get some fantastic whiskey recommendations. He's selling us on the idea of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, but he also comes in with movies that neither of us have ever heard of and that we have to check out now.
Yeah, I promise you. See that movie, Brain Donors, and then we're going to have me back on and we will have a discussion about it.
Well, David, we cannot thank you enough for being here. One more time, just for our listeners, can you give us the details? We have not mentioned yet the dates for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. So if you're looking to block off your calendar, where can they go to find all the information?
kybourbonfestival.com, September 16th through the 18th. Don't miss it. You can, go to the website. You can sign up on the website, on our email list to get the latest updates. You can also follow us, obviously, on all the social media, on, Facebook and on Instagram, but kybourbonfestival.com.
Well, everybody, that was David Mandell, CEO, chairman of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. We're so thankful that he took the time to come on with us. But we will be coming back to you next week on Monday with a regularly scheduled episode. But until then, I am Brad G.
I'm Bob Book.
And we'll catch you next time. Today's sponsor is a little bit of a departure from our usual area of expertise, and man, oh man, I was blown away by their product once we received it. I am talking about Manscaped. Now, if you're like me at all, you've probably seen the Manscaped ads and kind of wondered to yourself, like, do I really need like some sort of specialty trimmer to take care of my downstairs business? And I've just got to be honest, I was absolutely wrong. Their trimmer is called the Lawnmower 4.0. And I gotta say, it is the Rolls Royce of trimmers. It's got a ceramic blade that reduces grooming mishaps, a wireless charging base, and an awesome flashlight that keeps things illuminated while you're working. And beyond all that, it's waterproof. This thing is really changing the game when it comes to below-the-belt hygiene. Now, this is just me talking about my experience, but this trimmer really is way beyond anything I've ever used to keep things neat and tidy. You can use our discount code FILMWHISKEY to get 20% off your order and free shipping. Head on over to manscaped.com and use code FILMWHISKEY to get 20% off, free shipping, and you will be well on your way to hygiene heaven.